Hey Fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. I hope you had a great weekend. Coming up next, we're bringing you the latest news in the MMA world where a fighter tests positive for steroids. There's an update on Bisping versus Belfort and a good chance Cerrone-Pettis will meet soon. Our MMA panel will break it all down for us, so let's get started. Last week, Stephan Bonnar announced his retirement, and just a few days later, we now find out that he failed his drug test at UFC 153. Bonnar tested positive for anabolic steroids, and since Brazil doesn't have an official athletic commission, the UFC served as the governing body and will soon announce a suspension for Bonnar. Finally, the Michael Bisping versus Vitor Belfort middleweight match has officially been confirmed by UFC officials. They'll headline an unnamed show on FX on January 19th in Brazil. This bout tops off what is looking to be a themed Brazil versus foreigner type show. And just 1 week after that event, there's a very good chance we'll see Donald Cowboy Cerrone get his long-anticipated match with Anthony Pettis in the Octagon on January 26th. That's the possible date for the UFC on Fox 6 card. Now, those are your latest newsmakers coming out of the weekend. Let's hear what our MMA panel is saying. It's over to John Pollock and John Ramdeen. And guys, you both went to Bellator 79 on Friday night. Tell me. Thumbs up. All right. Pollock?
It was a great time. John Ramdeen and I, we had a date together Friday night in beautiful Rama, Ontario. John bought dinner. I bought popcorn. We had a great time watching some men beat up on one another, and a very, very good card, I thought. Only 2 fights going to the judges' decisions, 2 tournament fights. We saw Richard Hale, who we can discuss first. This was his return to the heavyweight division for this tournament, and has been one of the key stories of Season 7, defeating Thiago Santos, who never will have a fight that there is not some controversy around. This guy just seems like a cursed heavyweight.
Yeah, and he didn't look particularly good in this fight. He came out swinging, he landed some big shots, but unfortunately for him, Richard Hale was able to rebound, and he looked very explosive in this matchup. I think that, it's a sign of things to come. I think he's going to be a force in the heavyweight division, but he's going to be taking on, the winner of this upcoming week's final matchup for the heavyweight championship. Actually, Bellator doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know if Richard Hale will have to fight another fight before getting a chance to fight for the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, this was very vague, where they said, well, the winner of this tournament might get the heavyweight title, or we're going to do another tournament and the 2 tournament winners will fight. So they better figure this out pretty soon. Over to the featherweight semifinal we saw on Friday night, Shabulat Shamalayev with a beautiful counter knocking out Mike Richman. He's going to the finals. He's another one of the Russians, along with Andrei Koreshkov, who have really kind of set themselves apart here in terms of incoming talent to Bellator.
Yeah, he looked spectacular as well, and Mike Richman is a talented guy, training at Minnesota Martial Arts with Greg Nelson, who helped Sean Shirk with his career, and Nick Lentz and Jacob Volkman, and of course Brock Lesnar. So he's a very tough guy, and for Shamalayev to take him out in spectacular fashion in that first round speaks volumes about the Russian.
And quickly, let's touch upon 2 welterweights who were victorious, Canadian Ryan Ford, as well as Douglas Lima, looking very, very impressive. And Jacob Ortiz, my God, was this man just harassed during this fight.
Not just Jacob Ortiz, Kyle Baker, too, in the Ryan Ford fight.
Nasty mouse under his eye.
Ryan Ford hit this guy with everything, and I think we both agree that that first round could have been a 10-8 round for Ryan Ford. He simply manhandled him, but for Baker, he was like the Terminator. He would not go down, just kept coming forward, and I had a chance to talk to Ryan Ford, and he says he's faced a lot of top guys, Pete Spratt from The Ultimate Fighter, Tommy Spear, and Douglas Lima. He says that Kyle Baker, the toughest guy of his career that he's faced.
And Bellator is working furiously to try and get the legal situation with Ryan Ford's past so that he can get into the U.S. and fight in a future welterweight tournament. Going over to Saturday night, World Series of Fighting made their debut in Las Vegas, Nevada. Some interesting fights. I mean, this was really a showcase for a number of fighters, and outside of the Miguel Torres fight, there weren't really any upsets, I would say, but I thought a pretty clean production, and in terms of a first show coming out of the gate and establishing a few key guys, mainly Tyrone Spong and Andre Arlovsky looking very good against Devin Cole.
You know, I really, really like the show. I like the presentation, I like the pacing of the show, and of course, you know what? The fight game is all about building your own fighters. You're trying to build your brand, and Tyrone Spong looked great. Yes, he was taking on a guy that had more experience than him in terms of mixed martial arts, but everybody knows what Tyrone Spong is about. It's all about kickboxing. He ended things and a
walk-off knockout.
He looked really good. But you also have to look at Marlon Moraes against Miguel Torres. He knew what type of fighter Miguel Torres is. This guy is a former decorated champion.
I enjoyed that fight a lot.
Very
the audience was booing.
Yeah, because they're idiots. The fact is that this guy is a guy to look out for, and I think he did his job. He came to upset Miguel Torres and make his name for the World Series of Fighting, and there's no doubt that he will be back.
How did you score that fight with Moraes and Torres? Because
I was not 30-27 for Moraes.
They were very close rounds.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any issue with whatever score you came out of that with. I had Moraes winning 29-28, but those were three very close rounds.
Yeah, first round I gave to Moraes. I think it was his round, but the last two, very subjective. You could even see that Miguel Torres had that third round, but what about Anthony Johnson as well?
Anthony Johnson, I think, just earned himself a 205 contract back inside the UFC. And Sarah Davis, we send it on back to you. A big, big weekend of fights in the bag.
You know it. And we have a huge week coming up next week on Fight Network, because that's when we're going to have a big, big lead up to UFC 154 in Montreal. We'll have the live pre-fight press conference, live weigh-ins, and you'll want to join us after the card on the Saturday night for a live wrap-up of the event and post-fight presser. Okay, so it's all coming up next week on Fight Network, but right now we're bringing you a recap of Bellator 79.